Senator Rand Paul joining me right now. Senator, very good to have you. You later on put this in the greater context, and it was, I thought, a very valid point about all the money we give to buy friends in that region of the world, particularly out of the billions given to Egypt, more to the point, and a fortune that really made the Mubarak family quite happy. Did you get any answers?
Yeah, you know, one of the things you're trying to judge, I think, is temperament. And he's been through about 5 hours of testimony now. And you want to know, will he be a diplomat? Does he understand that war is the last resort, not the first resort? And I think that's come through pretty clearly. I think it's also important that your head diplomat, the Secretary of State, not believe that we live in a simple world where people are all good or all evil. And this is the thing that's been lost on some, even some in my party, that when you discuss Russia, they're neither all good nor all evil. They are our adversary often. They've been acting in an aggressive way outside of international norms, aggressively moving into countries and crossing international borders. And yet, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a conversation, or that we still don't have to have a conversation concerning nuclear arms and making sure that we don't have accidents happen in a large scale in our country and our world. So I think he does understand that more than some of the maybe knee-jerk neoconservatives that may be a little bit too I guess, prone to thinking war is the first resort, not the last.
Were you, by any chance, including Marco Rubio in that group and his pretty tough, sharp questioning?
I don't want to characterize anybody, but I do think that a diplomat probably will not be saying, you know, the head of so-and-so country is a war criminal. I think that's probably not a good way to start off a new administration. The Secretary of State will need to talk to Russia, both about nuclear arms, about making sure accidents don't happen, that we don't shoot down one of their planes or vice versa. So there's some very important things that even though we are adversaries with Russia, we can't close up shop and become isolated from them and not engage. And I think this is one of the things that's misunderstood about sort of my position versus the neoconservatives. I think the neoconservatives are actually isolationists in the sense that they want to, they're ready to fight all the time, and they're sort of wanting to close up shop and say, oh, we're not going to engage with people who have bad human rights records or who have done bad things to Americans. Well, it doesn't mean we approve of what they do, but we still have to have a dialogue that goes on.
You know, right now, Senator, your colleague Cory Booker from the state of New Jersey is questioning Rex Tillerson. He broke precedent earlier today, as you know, testifying against Jeff Sessions. And the issue that essentially Jeff Sessions, I think what Cory Booker was getting at, comes down to being very unsympathetic to minority causes, darn near a racist. What do you think of that?
Well, you know, Cory Booker and I have worked together on some criminal justice reforms, and I've actually been on the opposite side of that issue with Jeff Sessions. But I don't think it's fair to attack Jeff Sessions for racial insensitivity or racism. Those are such terrible charges that they should only be leveled against people who truly are, because really in our modern world, I've never met anybody who wants to be called a racist. We all strive very hard to say, you know what, the law needs to be colorblind. And I think if you want to look at Jeff Sessions as close as you can get to what he truly believes, you know, one of the people that advanced through his office was an African American who now is the only chief of staff for a Republican in the House side. And people who actually worked with him you might want to talk to, instead of saying, well, some African Americans don't like Jeff Sessions. Well, you might want to point out that some of the ones who aren't happy with Jeff Sessions are also from an opposite party. We can have differences of opinion without being called a racist. And I didn't look, and I'm not characterizing Cory Booker's presentation of that because I didn't hear it actually. But what I'm just saying is that I'm a little defensive to people trying to characterize Jeff Sessions as something that I think is a terrible thing to be called, and I have never seen any evidence of that from Jeff Sessions.
Rex Tillerson, in speaking today, had mentioned that sanctions generally don't work. They end up hurting American interests more than the country to whom they're targeted. And he had a sort of a reassessing relationship, to your point, about how not only we give out aid to one of your concerns, but how we approach dealing with countries. But the one area I wanted to address with you was how he thought this administration bungled its response to Russia when it first invaded Crimea, and that he might have wished to send a stronger signal, either amassing troops on the border, getting NATO to do the same. But if I understand, Senator, NATO wasn't willing to do that back then, hence we fell back on sanctions. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was here at the time, and I think the problem was Obama wanted to appear strong, and so he drew this red line. Then he got cold feet and he said, maybe I should obey the Constitution and ask Congress first. I've always been of the opinion you ask Congress first. So really, a president shouldn't, for the most part, be drawing red lines like that in the middle of war for which he hasn't even asked approval for us to be there in the first place. We're involved with this war with ISIS, and there is a valid debate we should have over how it should be conducted, where it should be conducted, the extent of what we do. We haven't had that yet. So we've done things completely backwards, and this is not a good way to have foreign policy. Going to war is the most important debate we will ever have. Nothing is probably more profound than sending our young men and women into harm's way. I've seen the devastation that happens to our young people in war. When we have to go to war, we should vote on it. It's our obligation to vote before we send our soldiers.
So when Mr. Tillerson then takes that tougher approach, sir, and I think it's my interpretation, to send a strong signal to Russia that this will not be tolerated. He said that had we done that back then, and again, whether it's troops building on the border or providing munitions and help or whatever the Ukrainians need, that would be going too far for you?
I would probably take a different approach in the sense that I'm not sure anything would have kept Russia out of Crimea short of actually amassing, 100,000 troops in Ukraine, and we weren't going to do that, nor do I advise that. Same with Syria. Russia's had a base in Syria for 50 some odd years. They have a relationship, a long-standing relationship with Assad. They were never leaving easily, and you would have to decide beforehand, are you willing to confront another nuclear power over Syria? Is there a clear-cut side that is in America's interest? And really, it's a very complicated situation. I mean, there are 2 million Christians in Syria. They generally like Assad. They don't like the people we have supported. Many of the people we have supported are hardline extremists with regards to radical Islam. We have supported many people and given them weapons who have said when they're done with Assad, not ISIS, but when they're done with Assad, they'll attack Israel. So I question the wisdom of actually giving weapons to many of the people we have given to, and I think actually some of our weapons have wound up in the hands of ISIS. So I don't know that there has been a good or is a good solution in Syria, other than I think Tillerson is right. We should address what is in our best interest, not thinking of, we're going to make the world safe for democracy with some sort of Wilsonian utopia. We need to say what is in the United States' best interest.
Senator Paul, Donald Trump also said today and acknowledged today in his press conference that Russia probably was behind cyber attacks in the past election, but he also struck back at allegations in an intelligence dossier that he said weren't fairly vetted or even right, but that this almost sounded like a cabal on the part of intelligence officials. What do you make of it?
What I would say is that if there's private information that someone is blackmailing a public figure, and the public figure or someone takes it to the intelligence agencies, you would think it would be private. And really, this is so important that I think whoever leaked it should be prosecuted. Someone should go to jail. If this was an intelligence agency head that talked to the media, they should go to jail. If this was part of the Obama administration, they should go to jail. The reason is you don't want your public figures succumbing to blackmail. Now, he's saying the information is false, and I have to rely on his word on that. But the thing is let's say any public official is being blackmailed. What do they tell you to do? You're supposed to go to the FBI and give them the information. But if you can't trust the FBI to keep it secret, and the FBI is going to tell the press what someone's blackmailing you about, what will happen is it will lead to a situation where public figures may be more liable to be extorted or to be blackmailed. So this is a very serious thing.
But that's exactly what your colleague Senator John McCain did with this, as for what you outlined, that someone gave this or he got wind of this, sent it and went to the FBI with this information and let them pursue it. What do you think of the approach he took?
Well, I don't know what all happened. All I can say is when information is given to the FBI, particularly information that people are using to blackmail somebody, it has to be kept private, and no one will want to give information to the FBI if the FBI is going to release blackmail information to the public. This is essentially what happened. Somebody is releasing information that was trying to be used to blackmail it, and it turns out the president-elect says it's not true, but what's more important than any of that is that you can't let the intelligence agencies release blackmail information to the public. It had to either be them, or I'm not sure if the Obama administration was in this meeting. I'm not sure how the information got out, but this should not be released to the public. That's crazy. These are allegations. I have no way of ascertaining whether they're true or false, but it's absolutely inappropriate for someone to be putting this out in the public.
All right, now I know you have to get back to this hearing, so indulge one last question on health care. And of course, you started this firestorm here where you said, look, if we're going to repeal this thing, which you want to do, let's have a replacement in place. Presumably you have that now or close to it. Donald Trump has given mixed signals, though, and maybe I'm misreading it, where he at first was agreeing with you simultaneous, but now repeal right away and in short order get the replacement going. Where does this stand?
You know, I'm getting the same signals from President-elect Trump that I got when I talked to him on the phone, that it should be at the same time. See, it's not exactly certain which actual day that we're going to have the repeal vote. It's coming sometime in the next several weeks. It is being pulled together. But the replacement vote should be on the same day. And why I think this is so important is, one, Republicans do have a replacement plan. We've got a bunch of ideas, some that have been out there for decades, but the Democrats have never let us have them. These involve legalizing the sale of inexpensive insurance, savings accounts so you can save for your insurance, and letting individuals band together so they can get cheaper prices. These are great market reforms. They need to be enacted, and they need to be enacted so we can soften the blow of getting away from this terrible federal government boondoggle called Obamacare.
Senator Rand Paul, thank you very much. Very good seeing you.
Thank you.